The day began like any other in the grand halls of the Galactic Council. Massive, shining spires stretched into space, their surfaces reflecting the light of 1,000 nearby stars. Inside, delegates from dozens of species gathered to discuss urgent matters, their voices overlapping in a confusing cacophony. Each species had its own way of speaking, some using sounds, others projecting images directly into the minds of those present. It was chaos, but it was expected. The council had always been a place of endless debate, endless waiting, and endless excuses. That morning, however, there was a new crisis looming, one that threatened the very fabric of interstellar communication. A critical relay system that connected dozens of star systems was failing. Messages from one end of the galaxy to the other were being delayed, scrambled, or completely lost. Governments could not coordinate. Trade routes risked collapse. Even life-saving emergency signals were failing. For most species, this was terrifying, but for the Council, it was just another problem to argue over. Debates began immediately. One delegation argued that the relay failure was caused by natural cosmic events, claiming that meteor activity and radiation spikes were responsible. Another species insisted that it was sabotage, pointing fingers at rival factions across the galaxy. Yet another group said the system simply needed routine maintenance, and that the Council should approve a plan that had already been drafted months ago. But each faction refused to take responsibility, each hoping someone else would fix the problem. Hours passed, and still no one acted. The conversation became louder, more frantic, and more meaningless with every passing minute. Amid all this chaos, the human representative remained silent. They observed everything with quiet intensity, noting each argument, each excuse, and each failing plan. Humans had learned long ago that patience was important, but patience had its limits. Sitting in the midst of species that could argue endlessly without achieving anything was a test of endurance. The human representative leaned back, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room. Their expression was calm, almost bored, but inside, frustration was growing. The Council had dealt with humans before. Some delegations respected their ability to act decisively, while others underestimated them, thinking humans were impulsive, unorganized, or simple. Many species had forgotten one important lesson. When humans decide something needs to be done, they do it, no matter what. They didn't wait for consensus, approvals, or endless committees. That day, the other delegates would remember that lesson in a way they would never forget. The debate stretched on. Hours turned into what felt like an eternity. Plans were proposed and discarded almost as quickly as they were suggested. Every proposal was met with objections, counter-arguments, and endless negotiations. Some species wanted to send an inspection team to evaluate the problem firsthand. Others suggested consulting ancient records for historical fixes. Still, none of them wanted to actually touch the system. Finally, after nearly an entire galactic rotation of talking in circles, the human representative spoke. Their voice was quiet at first, almost polite, blending into the chaos like any other voice. Then, when no one seemed to be listening, it grew firmer, sharper, cutting through the endless arguments. "Fine," the human said. "I'll handle it." The words echoed through the council chamber like a ripple in water, reaching every delegate at the same time. There was an instant pause. Beings froze mid-gesture, mid-sentence, mid-thought. Eyes widened, mouths opened, but no sound came out. For the first time in recorded council history, absolute silence fell across the chamber. Not a whisper, not a vibration, not a single signal of disagreement. Just silence. Other species didn't react at first because they didn't know how. They had heard stories of humans taking matters into their own hands, but they had assumed those stories were exaggerations, myths, or warnings meant to scare children. But now, Here it was in real time. A human had just declared they were going to handle a problem that dozens of species had failed to solve for hours, maybe days. And everyone knew what that meant. The human representative rose from their seat, moving with calm, deliberate steps. Every motion was purposeful. They didn't shout, they didn't gesture wildly, they didn't demand attention. They simply walked, eyes fixed on the holographic display of the failing relay network. The room followed, not because anyone wanted to, but because they couldn't look away. The air was thick with tension. Some species whispered to each other, trying to rationalize the situation. "Surely they can't fix it," one voice murmured. "They're human," another replied, "which means they probably will." By the time the human arrived at the control interface for the relay system, every other delegate had stepped back. Some even tried to pull rank, demanding protocols be followed, insisting that the humans were overstepping authority. But the human representative only smiled faintly, a small, knowing curve of the lips. They didn't respond verbally. They didn't argue. They simply began assessing the problem, moving their hands across the controls with fluid confidence. The system was far more complex than anything any other species had worked on before. Wires, conduits, energy nodes, and quantum circuits stretched across the network like the roots of some gigantic cosmic tree. Each component interacted with dozens of others in ways that were difficult to predict. Other species would have panicked, tried to run simulations, or spent weeks calculating the safest path forward. But humans had a different approach. They were practical, direct, and fearless. They looked at the problem and immediately began to consider what needed to be done without hesitation or doubt. Minutes passed. The delegates watched, still unsure if they should intervene. Some species whispered warnings, claiming that humans might damage the network permanently. Others argued that humans would be reckless and that the council would bear the consequences. But still, the humans continued, completely focused, completely unbothered. Then something remarkable happened. A small spark of energy flared across the network, signaling the first stabilization of the failing relay. Other species gasped. No one had expected it to work so quickly. The human representative didn't pause. They adjusted another node, recalibrated a few conduits, and rerouted power with precision that seemed almost impossible. The system began to hum steadily, and the first successful interstellar messages shot across the grid again. Communication was returning, faster and clearer than before. The room remained silent, but now there was a different tension. This wasn't fear anymore. It was awe. The other species had underestimated humans, assuming they needed permission, guidance, or lengthy preparation. But humans didn't operate that way. When they said, "I'll handle it," they meant it. And they meant it fully. The Galactic Council had never seen anything like this dot by the time the first full communication cycle completed, connecting dozens of star systems without a single error. The other delegates realized something important. Humans were not just capable of handling crises. They could redefine what it meant to solve them. The network wasn't just repaired. It was stronger, more efficient, more reliable than anyone had imagined possible. And yet, the human representative had done it calmly, without drama, without arrogance, simply because it was the right thing. To do. The silence lingered for a few more moments as everyone absorbed what had happened. Then, slowly, whispers began to spread. The council was in shock. They had all known humans were different, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Stories would be told for centuries about this day, about the moment when humans took control of a crisis that seemed impossible. And as those stories spread, one phrase would become infamous across the galaxy. When humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," you'd better hope they do. That day marked more than just the repair of a failing relay. It marked the beginning of a shift in galactic perception. Humans were no longer just participants in council politics. They were problem solvers, decisive, relentless, and unafraid. Every species would remember it. Every star system would feel the effects, and every future crisis would be approached differently because of it. Humans had drawn a line, and the galaxy had no choice but to respect it. And so, the first step in a story that would change interstellar history had begun. The human representatives sat back, observing the network they had just stabilized, quietly, noting that there were still more problems to solve. But for now, they allowed themselves a small, satisfied breath. The galaxy had shut down for a moment, but in the hands of a human, it had also begun to heal. Once the human representative had spoken those unforgettable words, "Fine, I'll handle it," and made the first moves to stabilize the failing relay, the other species began to understand just how different humans really were. What followed was not just repair work, it was a display of precision, speed, and boldness that the Galactic Council had rarely witnessed. Humans had a way of approaching problems that was direct and fearless. They didn't waste time debating, waiting for approval, or consulting endless simulations. They assessed, planned, and acted, all in a sequence so swift and natural that it seemed almost like instinct. The human engineering team, already trained for extreme situations, had been ready the moment the representative gave the order. They didn't just intend to fix the relay, they intended to ensure it could never fail the galaxy again. Other species in the council panicked. Some whispered warnings about human overreach. "They shouldn't be touching it," said one. "We could lose decades of progress if they make a mistake," argued another. But even as they spoke, humans were already moving. The team had deployed portable drones, small, fast, and incredibly precise, to inspect the network node by node. Each drone emitted quiet, humming sounds as it repaired circuitry, recalibrated energy flows, and reinforced weak points. What took entire delegations weeks or months to coordinate was now happening in hours. Humans worked in a coordinated rhythm, almost like a dance. The leader didn't give long instructions or explanations. They simply pointed, adjusted a few settings, and the team knew exactly what to do. It was terrifying for the other delegates to watch. There was no room for argument, no opportunity to intervene, and no hesitation. Every action had a purpose, and every decision was final. As the human team progressed, rumors began to spread through the council chambers. Some species speculated that humans were using advanced technology that no one else had seen before. Others believed they were taking shortcuts that could destabilize the network entirely. Still, no one dared stop them. The human representative had taken command, and the momentum was unstoppable. The council watched in awe and fear as the humans moved from one critical relay to the next. Each system was analyzed, repaired, or replaced with breathtaking efficiency. What amazed everyone most was not just the speed, but the thinking behind each move. Humans didn't just repair. They anticipated problems before they happened. They added redundancies, fortified weak nodes, and rerouted energy flows to prevent any future failures. The galaxy's network was being upgraded in ways that no species had dared attempt. Some species tried to intervene, sending teams of engineers to offer help or correct what they thought might be mistakes. The humans, however, politely but firmly declined. "We've got it under control," the representative said, and that was the end of it. The other species stepped back, partly in disbelief and partly out of respect. It wasn't that humans were arrogant. They simply trusted their own judgment and skill, and they had proven time and time again that it worked out. As the hours passed, a strange phenomenon occurred. The council, which was known for endless debate and indecision, became silent. The human team's actions had forced a temporary pause in political arguments. For once, no one could claim that their species' solution was better, or that another approach was more valid. Humans were simply doing what needed to be done. The room, once chaotic with voices and complaints, now hummed quietly with the energy of concentrated work. Meanwhile, the human representative wasn't just overseeing repairs. They were observing the bigger picture. They noticed minor instabilities in related systems, predicted which nodes might fail next, and adjusted plans accordingly. Where others saw isolated problems, humans saw interconnected systems, cascading effects and long-term solutions. By the end of the first full cycle, humans had not only repaired the immediate failures, they had already begun preventative measures for future crises. Other species started taking notes, almost unwillingly. Some were skeptical, some were fearful, but all were intrigued. Humans had a way of solving problems that seemed reckless at first, yet the results spoke for themselves. The relay network was coming online faster than anyone had predicted. Communication. Signals, previously erratic and unreliable, became smooth, consistent, and even stronger than before. Messages once delayed for hours now reached distant systems in moments. Entire fleets, diplomatic stations, and trading posts began to regain connection. What truly shocked the Council was how calm the humans were throughout this operation. While other species would have panicked under such pressure, the human team moved steadily, responding to each challenge with logic and skill. They didn't rush recklessly, nor did they hesitate. Every adjustment was deliberate, every action measured. Observers began to realize that the human approach wasn't just effective, was terrifyingly efficient. During one particularly tense moment, a critical energy node began to overload. The Council's delegates gasped, certain that disaster was imminent. They expected sparks, explosions, or catastrophic failure. But the human representative didn't flinch. With a few quick calculations and precise commands, the overload was redirected, neutralized, and reinforced within minutes. What could have been a galactic-scale disaster was now barely noticed. It wasn't just the technical skill that impressed other species. It was the mindset. Humans didn't see obstacles as insurmountable. They didn't waste time blaming others or debating responsibility. When they said they would handle something, it meant taking complete ownership, facing risks head-on, and ensuring success no matter what. This philosophy, so simple to humans, was nearly incomprehensible to the other species. As the repair operation continued, the human team began to implement improvements. Old components were replaced with more durable materials. Software protocols were rewritten for greater efficiency. Energy flow paths were redesigned to allow for faster communication and fail-safes. Every improvement was layered seamlessly, so that the network not only returned to functionality, but was stronger than anyone had imagined possible. The galaxy, which had feared collapse, was now witnessing a revolution in infrastructure. The Council's initial panic slowly turned into awe. Observers whispered among themselves, acknowledging that humans didn't just fix problems, they elevated standards. Other species had always approached crises with caution, but humans approached them with clarity, courage, and a relentless drive for perfection. By the time the first stage of repairs was complete, the failing relay system was not just operational. It was a marvel of engineering, stronger, faster, and more resilient than ever before. Even as the operation moved to the next set of relays, the human representative remained composed. Their calm confidence was infectious, spreading to the team and unexpectedly to some delegates. Some species began to realize that perhaps humans had a point. Endless debate and indecision, while culturally normal in the Council, often delayed solutions and increased risk. Humans didn't just work faster, they demonstrated that action, guided by skill and judgment, could achieve what diplomacy alone could not. By the end of the cycle, the relay network was humming with power, relaying messages across dozens of star systems. Communication returned, not just to the previous state, but to an unprecedented level of efficiency. Traders, fleets, and governments could send and receive information faster than ever before. Emergency alerts, diplomatic channels, and scientific data all flowed smoothly. The galaxy, which had feared collapse, now hummed with renewed vitality. The Council's delegates, exhausted and humbled, could only watch. They realized, perhaps for the first time, that human intervention was not a threat, it was a solution. Humans had done what no species had dared to attempt, and they had done it flawlessly. The realization spread quickly. When humans decided to handle a problem, they didn't just act, they transformed the situation entirely. By the time the human representative allowed the team a brief pause, the Council had learned an important lesson. Humans didn't need endless discussion. They didn't wait for approval or fear criticism. They assessed, planned, and executed with precision. They were not reckless, but their decisiveness and skill made them appear unstoppable. Every species present understood that this was not just about repairing a relay. It was a demonstration of the unique power humans brought to the galaxy. And so, what began as a crisis, threatening communication across countless star systems, became a showcase of human efficiency and ingenuity. The other species would carry the memory of this day for generations. The human team had proven that when humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," it is not a casual remark. It is a promise of action, competence, and results beyond imagination. The galaxy would never view humans the same way again, and the Council would learn to respect their decisiveness, even if it made them nervous. In the quiet aftermath of the first stage of repairs, the human representative looked over the now stable network, satisfied but aware that more work remained. The galaxy had paused in fear, but in the hands of humans, it had also begun to rise stronger. And as whispers of admiration and fear spread among the delegates, one truth became clear. Humans didn't just handle problems, they transformed the galaxy while doing so. By the time the humans had stabilized the initial relay failures, the Galactic Council thought the crisis was over. Many species leaned back, relieved, convinced that humans had done what needed to be done and would now allow others to finish the minor tasks that remained. They were wrong. Humans weren't content with merely fixing a problem. They wanted to ensure it would never happen again. Their approach was not just repair. It was transformation. The human representative surveyed the network and immediately noticed the weaknesses that no one else had dared touch. The older nodes were fragile, susceptible to overloads, and scattered with outdated components that had been patched repeatedly over decades. Other species had considered them good enough because nothing had failed catastrophically before. Humans, however, had a different standard. If something could be improved, it would be improved. If a problem could happen, it would be prevented. Before it even appeared, without consulting the Council, the human team began designing a completely new relay network. At first, other species assumed it was a minor adjustment, maybe a few replacements here and there. Then the full scope of the plan became clear. Humans weren't just repairing, they were building an entirely new system, one that would not only restore communication, but increase its speed, reliability, and capacity tenfold. The news spread quickly through the Council chambers, and panic began to rise. Some species argued loudly that humans were overstepping, taking unnecessary risks, and potentially destabilizing the galaxy. "They can't possibly do all of this," one ambassador shouted. "The simulations alone would take centuries." Another delegate insisted that humans were reckless, claiming that their actions could backfire disastrously. The human representative listened quietly, unfazed. Their calm confidence contrasted sharply with the flustered chaos around them. They spoke only once, clearly and simply. "We've already done the simulations. We know it works. We'll begin construction immediately." That was all. No further debate was allowed. Humans didn't ask for permission when action was urgent. They acted. Within hours, the human team began dismantling parts of the old relay system. To many species, this seemed reckless. They watched in horror as humans removed components that had functioned, despite being patched and fragile, replacing them with entirely new designs. The humans worked with surgical precision. Small drones carried delicate components through complex networks, weaving new circuits and energy conduits faster than anyone thought possible. Other species panicked, fearing the collapse of communication. Entirely, trade routes temporarily stopped sending signals. Fleets waiting for orders were left in silence. Emergency transmissions were delayed. For a moment, it seemed as if the galaxy itself might grind to a halt. The council scrambled, debating whether to intervene. Some suggested pausing the humans until a full assessment could be made. Others proposed emergency protocols to take over the operation. The human representative, however, remained calm. They understood the short-term disruption was necessary to achieve a long-term solution. Where others saw chaos, they saw a controlled, calculated pause. Every system was accounted for, every risk measured, every potential failure anticipated. They weren't acting recklessly. They were acting with certainty. As the human team moved through the galaxy's relay network, the scale of their work became apparent. Entire sections of the network were being replaced. Nodes were upgraded with quantum-stabilized cores that could transmit messages across vast distances without degradation. Energy conduits were rerouted for maximum efficiency. Software protocols were rewritten from the ground up, allowing for predictive error correction and instantaneous recovery from potential failures. By the time they finished, the relay system would be capable of handling 10 times the current traffic, far beyond the Council's expectations. Watching humans work in such a coordinated, confident way was disorienting for the other species. Some whispered that humans were reckless geniuses, that their methods were unpredictable and terrifying. Others were simply stunned into silence. No one dared question the human team directly. They had already learned the hard way that humans didn't just act, they succeeded. Even when other species doubted them, results proved humans right every time. Despite the intense pace, humans remained meticulous. They didn't rush blindly. Each upgrade was carefully tested before being activated. Drones scanned every connection, monitored energy flows, and corrected minute misalignments immediately. Humans communicated in short, efficient bursts, often without words, using gestures, signals, and pre-agreed protocols. Every member of the team knew exactly what to do and when, moving in a rhythm that made them seem like a single, unified organism. As construction continued, the galaxy felt a strange sensation, a temporary pause in normal operations. Signals stopped. Some systems went offline, and for 2 hours, communication grids were silent. The Council and other species were in near panic. Fleets floated in the void, unable to coordinate. Trading hubs went quiet. Scientific observatories stopped transmitting their findings. The galaxy itself seemed to have gone into a state of suspended animation, yet the humans were completely unshaken. They worked steadily, calmly, and efficiently. Every decision had been calculated, every action deliberate. By the end of the first hour, the first sections of the upgraded network were activated. Signals returned, faster and stronger than ever before. Messages that had taken hours to travel across systems now arrived instantly. Fleets could coordinate seamlessly, traders could resume operations, and scientists could transmit data with unprecedented clarity. The Council delegates were forced to admit, grudgingly, that humans were not only solving the problem, they were improving it beyond imagination. What had been a temporary disruption became a testament to human efficiency. The galaxy had shut down for a moment. But in that brief pause, humans had transformed communication into something more reliable, faster, and more resilient than any species had thought possible. Some species were still fearful. They whispered that humans were reckless, that their approach was dangerous, that the short-term risks might cause long-term instability. But others began to realize that humans were not reckless at all. They were fearless, precise, and exceptionally competent. Where other species hesitated, humans acted. Where others debated endlessly, humans solved problems. Their ability to think ahead, anticipate risks, and execute plans with perfect timing was unmatched by the time construction reached. The final stages, the galaxy's communication network was nearly unrecognizable. The old, patched systems had been replaced entirely. Quantum-stabilized cores hummed with energy. Data flows were faster, more stable, and self-correcting. Humans had not merely repaired the network, they had upgraded it to a level the Council hadn't thought possible. The last activation sequence was a moment of awe. Lights blinked across the network nodes as power stabilized. Signals flowed seamlessly across star systems. Communication returned everywhere at speeds that dwarfed anything previously imagined. The Council delegates watched, speechless, as their reports, orders, and messages traveled faster than they had ever believed possible. Finally, the human representative allowed the team a brief pause. They looked over the transformed network with quiet satisfaction. The other species, exhausted, humbled, and a little terrified, could only observe. Humans had not only handled the crisis, they had redefined what it meant to solve a problem. The galaxy had shut down for a brief period, but it emerged stronger, faster, and more resilient. The Council would not forget this moment. For the first time, every species understood a universal truth about humans. When humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," they do not just act, they transform the situation completely. They take ownership, anticipate every risk, and execute with precision that is both inspiring and intimidating. By the end of this stage, a single phrase began circulating among delegates and star systems. Don't make the humans say it. Everyone knew the consequences of underestimating them. Humans were no longer just participants in Council operations. They were problem solvers who could act decisively when the galaxy itself faced failure. And so, the stage was set. The initial crisis had been overcome. The galaxy had paused in fear, and humans had proven their unparalleled capability. What began as repair work had evolved into a complete transformation of interstellar communication, and everyone watching knew that the galaxy would never be the same. Humans had taken control, not for power, not for glory, but simply because they could and because it needed to be done. The Council had learned, once again, that when humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," they are unstoppable. The moment humans began upgrading the galactic relay network, the Council and the rest of the galaxy began to feel the ripple effects. Communication that had once been constant suddenly paused, leaving fleets, trade stations, an entire star systems in a strange silence. At first, the pause was subtle. Minor transmissions delayed by seconds, messages arriving scrambled or incomplete. But as humans moved deeper into the network, shutting down old nodes to install the new, the silence grew. Entire sectors lost contact. Fleets stopped coordinating. Traders could not communicate with each other. Scientists could not share their discoveries. Even diplomats could not send urgent alerts. Panic spread like wildfire. Some species argued with each other, blaming neighbors for the lack of communication. Governments scrambled to maintain order. Emergency protocols were triggered across multiple systems, but none were fully effective because the humans had paused the network completely, and the galaxy had no idea what was happening. Rumors began circulating. Some believed that humans had broken the system irreparably. Others speculated that this was a deliberate move to gain control over the galaxy. Fear and confusion spread faster than any message could travel. The council convened an emergency session. Delegates shouted over one another, each demanding explanations, each trying to assert authority. "This is unacceptable." One ambassador exclaimed, "We cannot allow a single species to shut down the entire network." Another added. Arguments escalated into accusations, and accusations into panic. No one had ever witnessed a crisis handled like this, and no one knew what to do. Humans had taken control, and the galaxy had no choice but to watch. The human representative, however, remained calm. While chaos erupted around them, they continued their work with precision. Every action had a purpose. Each node that was taken offline was carefully documented. Every relay that was upgraded tested and reinforced. Humans understood that the temporary shutdown was essential for the long-term improvement of the network. Where others panicked, humans acted with clarity. Where others debated endlessly, humans executed. Their focus never wavered, and they never let fear dictate their decisions. Other species tried to intervene, sending fleets of engineers to inspect the work or attempt repairs. The human team politely but firmly refused help. "We've got this," the representative said, and that was the end of discussion. Humans did not seek approval when immediate action was necessary. They did not pause for permission, and they did not hesitate for fear of what others thought. Their confidence, calmness, and expertise were both infuriating and awe-inspiring to those around them. As the shutdown continued, entire sectors of the galaxy felt the effects. Trade markets paused. Civilian communication systems went offline. Research stations stopped transmitting data. Governments struggled to maintain control. For some, it felt like the galaxy had stopped breathing. Panic and fear reached a fever pitch. Stories of human audacity began spreading faster than the messages themselves. "They have taken over the network," one voice whispered. "They have shut down everything," another replied. No one knew whether to be angry, fearful, or amazed. Despite the chaos, the human team worked steadily. They moved from system to system, upgrading, repairing, and reinforcing. Every adjustment, every installation, every recalibration was done with methodical precision. Humans were not reckless. They were fearless, meticulous, and supremely confident in their abilities. They understood the temporary pain caused by the shutdown, but they also knew that the long-term results would far outweigh the short-term panic. As humans worked, the council slowly realized that their fear was misplaced. The shutdown was not random. It was controlled, deliberate, and calculated. Humans had already anticipated the panic. They had measures in place to ensure that once the upgrade was complete, the network would be stronger than ever before. The realization began to sink in. Humans were not only capable of fixing the network, they were capable of transforming it. In the council chambers, delegates exchanged anxious glances. Some admitted privately that humans were beyond their understanding. "They operate on a level we cannot comprehend," one whisper said. Others were still angry, but a grudging respect began to emerge. The humans' ability to act decisively and effectively without hesitation was something the galaxy had never experienced on this scale. They were not just repairing, they were reshaping reality. Meanwhile, the human team's work continued without pause. They had already begun rerouting energy flows to support the new network structure. Redundant systems were installed to prevent any future failures. Advanced predictive algorithms were implemented to anticipate potential overloads. The network was being rebuilt, not just to function, but to thrive under conditions that would have previously caused total collapse. Humans worked tirelessly, driven by a sense of responsibility and confidence that no other species could match. As the shutdown reached its peak, some species attempted desperate measures. Emergency fleets tried to bypass the affected nodes. Traders attempted to send physical couriers through space to compensate for lost communication. Scientists attempted to relay data via secondary systems. All of these attempts were unnecessary, and humans allowed them to occur without interference, confident that their plan would succeed. And it did. Every single adjustment, every single upgrade was perfectly executed. By the end of the second hour, the upgraded network was nearly complete. When humans finally began bringing the systems back online, the effects were immediate and profound. Communication signals returned stronger, faster, and more reliable than ever before. Messages that had been delayed for hours now arrived almost instantaneously. Fleets coordinated with unprecedented efficiency. Trade resumed without hesitation. Scientific data flowed seamlessly across systems. The galaxy had stopped, feared total collapse, and yet emerged more connected than it had ever been. The council delegates were forced to acknowledge what had happened. Humans had not only handled a crisis, they had transformed the galaxy. The temporary shutdown, which had caused panic and fear, had been a necessary step in creating something far greater. Humans had turned chaos into order, fear into reliability, and confusion into clarity. The lesson was clear. Humans did not just fix problems, they redefined them. Whispers began circulating throughout the council. When humans say they will handle it, they really mean it. They are fearless, precise, and unstoppable. We have underestimated them for too long. Fear and respect mingled in equal measure. Humans had proven that when they acted, nothing could stop them. Not debate, not panic, not bureaucracy. They were decisive, capable, and supremely confident in their actions. Not by the time the final sections of the network were brought online, the galaxy was completely transformed. The upgraded relay system could handle more communication than ever before. Redundant nodes ensured no single failure could cripple the system. Predictive algorithms and energy rerouting made the network resilient and self-correcting. The galaxy had paused in fear, yet emerged stronger and more capable because humans had chosen to take responsibility. The human representative observed the completed work calmly, satisfied but aware that future challenges would always arise. The council and the other species, meanwhile, were left to digest what they had just witnessed. Humans had acted decisively, transformed the network, and restored stability on a scale no one else had thought possible. And so, the memory of that shutdown would live on in every corner of the galaxy. It became a story told across star systems. The day humans took control, paused the galaxy, and rebuilt it stronger than ever before. A new respect and a little fear grew for humans. They had proven a simple truth. When humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," the galaxy should expect the unexpected, the extraordinary, and the unstoppable. The humans did not seek recognition. They did not boast. They simply acted, knowing that action was necessary. And in doing so, they reminded every species in the council and across the galaxy that results, not words, define capability. The temporary shutdown was a small price for the immense improvement they delivered. The council had witnessed something unprecedented. Humans were not only problem solvers, they were visionaries who could act when the galaxy itself hesitated. By the end of the day, the galaxy had changed. Fleets, traders, diplomats, and scientists all experienced the results of human efficiency firsthand. Messages that had once taken hours traveled in seconds. Orders that had once been delayed now arrived instantly. The entire network, once fragile and outdated, was now a marvel of engineering and planning. The galaxy had feared the worst during the temporary shutdown, but humans had turned it into the best. The council would remember this day forever, not for the panic, not for the silence, but for the remarkable display of human decisiveness, skill, and foresight. The shutdown was over. The galaxy had paused, but in the hands of humans, it had also risen stronger, faster, and more capable than ever before. The legend of that day began to spread, along with a single unforgettable lesson. Humans do not just handle problems, they transform the entire galaxy while doing so. By the time humans had rebuilt most of the galactic relay network, the Council believed the work was nearly complete. They thought the crisis was over, the communications would resume fully, and life in the galaxy could return to normal. But the humans had one final step. They needed to activate the fully upgraded network, and for this, the entire system had to go offline completely. The temporary shutdown would last for 2 hours, and every species in the galaxy would feel its impact as soon as the human representative announced the plan, panic spread immediately. Traders worried about lost deals, fleets worried about navigation and coordination, scientists worried about lost research, and governments worried about citizens who relied on communication. Rumors flew faster than light signals. Some whispered that humans were reckless, risking total collapse. Others feared it was a deliberate attempt to seize control. The galaxy held its collective breath. Humans, as always, remained calm. The representative moved through the command center with steady confidence, issuing short, precise instructions to the engineering team. Every node, every relay, every connection had already been mapped and prepared for this final shutdown. Humans had accounted for every variable, every possible failure, and every contingency. While others panicked, humans executed with methodical precision. The shutdown began. Lights blinked across countless star systems as signals disappeared. Fleets went silent, trading hubs went dark, and research stations ceased transmissions. Governments scrambled to manage citizen concerns, but there was no way to communicate outside immediate local channels. For the first time in history, the galaxy experienced almost complete silence. It was eerie, frightening, and absolute. For 2 hours, the galaxy paused. Panic reached a fever pitch. Species feared that this was permanent, that their civilization was about to face collapse. Delegates in the council chambers argued, shouted, and blamed one another. They tried to predict what humans were doing, but humans had moved far beyond their understanding. Every simulation, every protocol, every emergency plan had assumed humans would act cautiously, slowly, or cautiously step by step. Humans did neither. They worked quickly, decisively, and without hesitation. During this tense period, the human engineering team moved like a perfectly synchronized organism. Small drones floated through the network, repairing microfractures, replacing worn components, and activating advanced stabilization nodes. Every adjustment was double-checked by autonomous monitoring systems that humans had built themselves. Every step was pre-planned, but humans adapted instantly when unexpected anomalies appeared. No other species could have handled this level of precision under such pressure. In the council chambers, delegates tried to intervene. Some sent inspection teams to verify the work. Some issued warnings to halt the operation, but all attempts were politely refused. "We've got it under control," the human representative said, as calm as if it were a routine task. And it was true. They did have it under control. Humans thrived under pressure. Where others saw risk, they saw opportunity. Where others hesitated, they acted. As the minutes passed, some species began to notice subtle signs of success. Drones moved faster than expected. Energy flows stabilized even before humans finished their adjustments. Redundant systems came online ahead of schedule. Slowly, confidence grew among the observers' confidence, mixed with awe. Humans were performing what no one thought possible, and they were doing it without error, hesitation, or panic. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, citizens and operators struggled through the silence. For fleets navigating distant systems, for traders waiting on messages, and for scientists hoping for research data, the pause was unbearable. Messages that had been relied upon for decades suddenly vanished. Emergency alerts could not reach their destinations. For a brief moment, the galaxy felt like it had stopped moving entirely. But humans knew exactly what they were doing. They had calculated the disruption to the second and knew the benefits would far outweigh the temporary chaos. Inside the network, humans began activating the upgraded system. Nodes that had been offline for hours now hummed with energy, transmitting signals with unprecedented speed and accuracy. Redundant systems engaged automatically, preventing any single failure from disrupting the flow. Predictive algorithms corrected minor errors instantly, ensuring perfect communication across star systems. The galaxy, which had feared collapse, began to feel the first signs of its rebirth. The first messages sent across the upgraded network arrived faster than any previous technology had allowed. Fleets coordinated with flawless timing. Traders resumed operations without delay. Research data streamed instantaneously across systems. Even emergency alerts reached their destinations without interference. In less than an hour, the galaxy had gone from total silence to a new level of connectivity that no species had anticipated. By the time the 2-hour shutdown was complete, the results were undeniable. The network was not only fully restored, was transformed. Speeds were faster, reliability was higher, and every system had redundant backups to prevent future failures. Humans had taken a galaxy on the brink of communication collapse and made it stronger than it had ever been. The panic that had gripped countless civilizations was replaced by awe and relief. The Council, exhausted and humbled, could only watch. The human representative quietly oversaw the final adjustments, ensuring every system was fully operational. There was no celebration, no fanfare. Humans did not seek recognition. Their satisfaction came from the work itself, from knowing that the galaxy was safer, faster, and more capable than before. Observers began to whisper among themselves. Humans were unlike any species they had known. They acted decisively, efficiently, and fearlessly. They didn't wait for approval or debate endlessly. When humans said they would handle something, they took full responsibility and delivered. Results beyond imagination. Fear and admiration mixed in equal measure. The galaxy had been terrified of the shutdown, yet it had emerged stronger because humans had acted. The lessons of those 2 hours spread quickly. Across star systems, the story was retold. Humans had shut down the entire communication network and rebuilt it better than anyone had thought possible. The narrative was simple yet powerful. Humans did not just fix problems, they transformed them. They didn't merely repair, they elevated. And the message was clear to all species. When humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," they mean it. The final adjustments were complete. The network was stable, resilient, and faster than ever before. Fleets, traders, and scientists could now rely on communication with a confidence they had never felt. Emergency protocols were more reliable. Redundant systems guaranteed stability. Predictive algorithms prevented overloads. The galaxy had been through fear and chaos, yet it emerged better than before. All of it had been achieved without humans asking for permission or praise. They acted because it was necessary. As the human representative observed the fully activated system, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet satisfaction. The work was not done, of course. The galaxy would always face new challenges. But for now, humans had shown what decisive action, skill, and calm judgment could achieve. Other species, witnessing this unprecedented feat, began to understand the full meaning of the phrase that would echo across civilizations for centuries. Humans don't just handle problems, they transform them completely. By the end of that day, a single truth had become undeniable. The galaxy had experienced fear, uncertainty, and silence. But it had also witnessed courage, precision, and transformation. Humans had acted decisively when others hesitated, had taken responsibility when others debated endlessly, and had delivered results that no one else could achieve. The 2-hour shutdown, terrifying to all who experienced it, became a defining moment. Stories spread immediately. Across star systems, beings told of the humans who shut down the galaxy's communication network and rebuilt it stronger than ever. Diplomats, traders, scientists, and fleet commanders all shared the same awestruck realization. Humans were unstoppable when they chose to act. The Council learned it firsthand. Citizens felt it in their newfound connectivity. Every species recognized it as the day humans reshaped the galaxy through courage, skill, and decisiveness. Humans, as always, did not boast. They simply completed their work and moved on, quietly ensuring stability and efficiency. The galaxy had survived the shutdown stronger than ever because humans had decided to take responsibility. And in doing so, they proved a lesson that would be remembered forever. Fear is temporary. Chaos is temporary. But decisive action, skill, and determination can transform even the greatest challenges into triumphs. After the humans completed the massive activation of the galaxy's communication network, the Council and every species in the universe slowly began to realize what had truly happened. The 2-hour shutdown that had terrified so many had not been a disaster. It had been a transformation. The entire network was now stronger, faster, and more reliable than ever before. Fleets coordinated flawlessly. Traders communicated instantly. Scientists shared discoveries without delay. And governments could manage emergencies with unprecedented efficiency. The galaxy had survived, and in fact, it had thrived because humans had chosen to act. The immediate aftermath was a mix of relief, awe, and a little fear. Many species whispered among themselves, acknowledging that humans were unlike any civilization they had ever encountered. They didn't just handle problems. They anticipated them, acted decisively, and executed solutions flawlessly. The human approach was not cautious or slow. It was bold, fearless, and precise. Where other species debated endlessly, humans acted, and their results spoke for themselves. In the council chambers, the mood was sober but respectful. Delegates who had argued, panicked, or questioned human methods now nodded in quiet acknowledgement. They did what we could not even imagine, one said. Another admitted, almost reluctantly, that humans had exceeded expectations in every way. There was a silent understanding among them. The galaxy had been in capable hands, and the humans had delivered more than anyone had dared hope. Across star systems, the people noticed the change as well. Communication that had once been slow, fragmented, or unreliable now worked flawlessly. Fleets of ships that had risked delays or confusion could now coordinate instantaneously. Traders could exchange goods across vast distances without losing time. Scientists could transmit research in real time, accelerating discoveries and cooperation. Citizens who had feared isolation during the shutdown now found themselves more connected than ever. The humans' decisive actions had not only saved the galaxy, they had improved it in ways that everyone could see and feel. Even as the galaxy adjusted to the new systems, a deep lesson spread. Many species had assumed that human behavior was reckless or arrogant. They had feared the temporary shutdown, believing humans might make mistakes or seize control. But in reality, humans had been methodical, meticulous, and responsible. Their confidence was rooted not in arrogance, but in skill, preparation, and an unshakable belief in their ability to solve problems. This lesson was profound, action-guided. By competence and foresight, could achieve what endless debate could not. The human representative, quietly observing the network, understood that their work was never truly finished. Challenges would continue to arise, systems would need maintenance, and new crises would emerge. But they had proven a key principle. When humans take responsibility, they do so completely. They do not simply fix what is broken. They strengthen, improve, and transform it. And that principle would remain clear in the minds of every species in the galaxy dot in the days that followed. The Council convened to analyze the impact of the shutdown and the upgrades. Reports confirmed what everyone had already observed. Network was faster, more reliable, and far more resilient than it had ever been. Nodes that had previously failed frequently now operated flawlessly. Energy systems were optimized to prevent overloads. Predictive algorithms anticipated errors before they could occur. Redundant systems ensured that no single failure could disrupt communication. Humans had not only solved a crisis, they had created a system capable of withstanding future challenges that no other species had anticipated. The other species began to reassess their approach to problem solving. Many realized that their methods' endless debate, cautious incremental adjustments, reliance on bureaucracy were slow and often ineffective in emergencies. Humans had demonstrated a different philosophy: act decisively, anticipate challenges, execute with precision, and trust in skill and preparation. The galaxy began to understand that human decisiveness was not reckless, it was transformative. Word of the humans' actions spread beyond the council chambers. Across countless star systems, beings discussed the day the galaxy had shut down and then come back stronger. Stories were told in trading halls, fleet command centers, research stations, and diplomatic embassies. The common theme was consistent. Humans had taken responsibility when others hesitated, acted when others debated, and delivered results that exceeded imagination. Fear mixed with respect, and every species came to understand that humans were forces of change, capable of feats no other civilization could match. Some species struggled to fully comprehend humans. They had never seen a civilization act with such speed, precision, and confidence in the face of potential disaster. Humans didn't just respond to problems, they anticipated them. They didn't wait for instructions, they took responsibility. They didn't falter under pressure, they thrived. It was a combination of fearlessness, intelligence, and foresight that set humans apart in the galaxy. Despite the admiration, there was also caution. Other species knew that humans' decisiveness could be intimidating, even unsettling. A civilization capable of shutting down the galaxy and transforming it in hours was not one to underestimate. Leaders quietly reminded themselves that humans' actions were guided by responsibility, not conquest, but they also acknowledged that humans could do incredible things when motivated. The lesson was clear. The galaxy had to respect human capability, and perhaps even learn from it. Back in the command center, the human representative reflected on what had been achieved. They had faced a crisis, acted decisively, and transformed the galaxy. But they also knew that challenges would never cease. Systems would fail, conflicts would arise, and emergencies would continue to test civilizations. Humans would continue to act when necessary, because that was their nature. To others, it might seem extraordinary, but to humans, it was simply responsibility in action. The upgraded network became a symbol of what humans represented: courage, skill, foresight, and the ability to transform challenges into triumphs. Delegates, fleet commanders, traders, scientists, and citizens all recognized the lesson. Humans don't just handle problems, they change the way the galaxy functions. The temporary shutdown had been terrifying, but the results were undeniable. Humans had demonstrated that action, competence, and responsibility could achieve what fear and indecision could never accomplish. Over time, the story of the shutdown became legend. Across generations, beings remembered the day the galaxy had paused in fear and then emerged stronger because humans had acted. The Council documented it as a case study in decisive action. Scientists studied the improved network, as an example of advanced engineering traders and fleet commanders used it to understand the importance of planning and adaptability. And every species carried with it the unforgettable lesson. Humans were capable of extraordinary feats when they chose to act. Even long after the immediate crisis was over, the impact of human decisiveness continued to shape the galaxy. Systems remained reliable. Communication networks operated faster than ever, and species learned to respect the approach humans had demonstrated. The temporary silence that had caused panic became a story of triumph, proving that bold action, guided by skill and preparation, could transform even the most daunting challenges into lasting success. The human representative continued to oversee the network for weeks afterward, making minor adjustments, ensuring stability, and observing the smooth operation of the systems. But they did not boast. They did not seek recognition. Their satisfaction came from knowing that the galaxy was safer, faster, and more connected than ever before. The humans' work had become a benchmark for what decisive, responsible action could achieve. In every corner of the galaxy, the story of that day inspired beings to rethink their approach to challenges. They realized that fear and hesitation could slow progress, while decisive, skillful action could achieve what was previously thought impossible. Humans had shown that taking responsibility, acting decisively, and trusting in preparation could change the course of the galaxy itself. The lesson endured. When humans say, "Fine, I'll handle it," it is not just a statement, it is a promise. A promise of action, of skill, of responsibility, and of transformation. The galaxy had learned it firsthand. In the silence of the shutdown, in the fear of the unknown, and in the brilliance of the result, humans had proven that they were forces of extraordinary capability. The galaxy would never underestimate them again.